Welcome back, boys and ghouls. This is Sarah Stephenson, and this is Mike Stephenson here,
Hi guys.
giving you our latest podcast, Boys and Ghouls Film Review.
Now, as we've often told you guys, we mainly do sci-fi, horror, and fantasy, and then we put the exception another what we believe to be an exceptionally good movie in there to break up the monotony of the same genre all the time.
Yeah.
This is one of those cases. What are we doing tonight, Sarah?
Well, tonight we are going, for this occasion, I thought we might review the Ten Commandments that was released in 1956.
Yep.
And on the record, guys, seeing as this is neither a sci-fi or well, it's a bit of an epic fantasy,
No,
but
it's not a fantasy.
but with religion involved
No,
in
it's
it.
not a fantasy. It's a religious epic.
Yeah.
Based on reality and based on history. Some things about Moses have had to be, I suppose, made up because there's not a lot written about him in his younger years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that sort of stuff. So,
And
yeah,
this movie, well, there's no way of explaining it to you guys, but the effects for this one go beyond your imagination.
And actually, it's still held up as one of the best special effects movies. Done. I mean, even allowing for CGI.
Yeah,
they didn't have CGI back in those
until
days.
the Passion of the Christ that was released in 2004, this movie was the highest-grossing religious epic in history, earning over $65 million in 2016 dollars.
Well, you may be right or wrong there, but
They're probably still going.
They worked on the box office for this based on 2020, and they reckon it would have got over $1 billion box office. $1 billion. That's not bad, guys.
Yes.
So it's been shown around the world. It's been syndicated,
and it's well
whatever,
and well loved by every culture.
And it keeps churning out. In some countries, I mean, our country, Australia, doesn't do it as often, but we used to have it on every Easter. We'd always be guaranteed to have biblical type movies on. Christmas time would have a nativity one. Maybe in America and England and other places in Europe and whatever might still be doing it, but I don't know.
Every time we often have, whenever Easter comes around, we often bring out the religious movies.
The Christ is new one, obviously,
like
but
King of Kings, Ben-Hur,
Jeffrey Hunter, Charlton Heston,
of course the Ten Commandments.
And there's lots of other ones too. There's around like The Robe and other things like that. They were really good. Victor Mature wasn't too bad in those. And, I always liked Barabbas because Barabbas was a bit of a spin-off from the religious movie because he was the guy hanging around the same time Jesus was, and he was the guy that said let Barabbas go.
Yes.
Instead of Jesus.
Yeah,
so
everyone knows this part.
So it's really interesting.
So
it all comes together.
So let's begin who directs, produces, and screenwrites.
This is...
So you guys know, this is directed by Cecil B. DeMille.
Wait a minute.
And this is not the first time he did the Ten Commandments. He did one way back in 1920s where he did a silent film of the Ten Commandments, but it was more of a sort of a...
It was part biblical at the beginning, and then it went on to contemporary to show
how the Bible comes into our lives often.
But the point is, he wasn't very happy with that movie. He wanted to remake it more from the biblical side of it.
Yeah, he wanted to make this movie to be a bit more detailed, like,
more biblical.
because as you may have read the Bible, you know the part about the fact about where Moses was put into a basket and sailed down the Nile and given to the princess of Egypt. And then we flash forward a few years later when he's an adult and he killed an Egyptian. And then we flash forward again to where he runs away too far away.
Well, he didn't run away. He was driven away.
Driven away or banished.
He could have given a horse.
And then we get to the part where he gets the burning bush telling him that he should go back to Egypt.
You're only going to tell a story later.
I know. I'm just giving you guys the cliff notes. The fact that at the time, Cecil wanted to fill in the gaps
Yeah,
between
yeah.
now and then and before all this stuff
Yeah,
happened.
and make a religious epic drama, whatever, almost like a biopic. But anyway,
Yeah.
here's that. We're getting back into producing and directing. This is what I like. The guys like Cecil B. DeMille, to me, was a standalone guy. You know how like we like independence?
Yes, we do.
Well, look at this. He produced it. Cecil B. DeMille produced, directed. He narrated in the movie. He was the voiceover for all the different parts of the beginning and transition bits and whatever and blah 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 blah. And it was his production company. So technically, he did everything. And so he was one of the original independents to a certain degree.
Yeah.
He did it all. And who said you can't do it all? And on a grand scale such as this. So yeah, very interesting man. Now it was written by Anais Mackenzie, Jesse Lansky Jr., Jack Garris, and Frederick Frank.
And it's been taken from many books.
Well, several books, of which I've got listed here. The Prince of Egypt, 1949, by Dorothy Clark Wilson. The Pillar of Fire, 1859, by J. Ingram. On Eagle's Wings, by A. Sutton. And the Book of Exodus, out of the Bible, obviously. And it's not written here in my notes here, but they even did some reference to the Quran because it had more stuff on Moses
Yeah.
in the Quran than they had actually in the Bible. So they went to all these different sources, and even the writings of Josephus and Philo and different things
Yeah.
to try and get this movie to be as real as possible.
Yeah, they even went to Mount Sinai, and
Yeah.
they even stayed at the monastery to
St.
hang out
Catherine's
with.
Monastery at
Yeah,
Sinai.
see, that monastery was built in honor of Moses
Yeah,
and
it
all
was.
that stuff.
And that, well, I don't know if it's honor of Moses, but that was where the Ten Commandments supposedly came from. So yeah.
So it played a very big part
yeah.
to the story.
That
And
must
Mike and I went
We've been
to
there, yeah.
Mount Sinai,
Yes, many years ago now, over 10, no,
and it was it
2006.
was just as beautiful and wonderful looking as it was in the movie.
Very desolate, but hauntingly beautiful. I think in some ways, it's dark. It's rocky desert. There's not a lot of greenery there, but it's just something about it. You go, ooh, okay, yeah. So you got that sort of feeling.
True.
Strange. Anyway, irrespective.
Anyway, who stars, directs it, and
Well,
stars
we've
in
done
it, obviously.
Yeah. But anyway, before I go on that, this is an extremely long movie and one of the longest
Like
movies.
3 hours long.
No, wait, over that it's 220 minutes, which is almost 4 hours long. And that was probably one of the longest movies made for an awful long time. Now, budget gets going back to I was talking about money before. It cost 13 million, I believe, back in those days to make. Box office back in those days did 122 million. That's back in the 50s. Now, when you equate it today, it was over $1 billion it made at box office. That's a shitload of money. No, that's a lot of bucks, guys.
Hey, Mike, don't swear.
I can't. That's still a lot of money, you know. And they weren't real sure about making the movie. I believe too. That is it going to be a good money earner or bad? It's going to be a Bible thing. Yeah. Is it going to be accepted by the people? And
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah, as it turns out, when Cecil went to the Egyptian authority guys if they to allow him permission to film in Egypt, this was filmed in Egypt, just so you know.
Some of it was, yeah.
And they were cool with this because they loved his movie adaptation of the Crusades. So they pretty much gave him full permission to film whatever he wanted.
Well, within reason, he probably had to pay a licensing fee and site rentals and permissions, and they got some money out of it, and the locals got some jobs out of it. They had to have, when they had a crowd scene of Cecil B. DeMille movies. Actually, I'll just go to the back of my notes here. There was something really ridiculous, something 14,000 bloody extras or something or other.
They had to have so many people to play shepherds and other people.
Yeah. For the large crowd scenes, at least 14,000 extras and 15,000 animals were used in filming the Ten Commandments. Now, I'm sorry that I just can't get my head around those figures. You know,
Well, yeah.
it's huge.
But it was kind of great how they filled it all in, and
Yeah.
they didn't have to use the technology we
No,
use
they did.
today.
They did blue screening, rear projection filming, and a bit of matte painting stuff there. And actually, some of the matte painting
Yeah.
covered up some of the blue screen issues they had too. I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
so let's move on to who stars in this for,
Well,
because this
I'm
plays a very
glad you asked. There's a lot of
important
them.
part.
I'm not going to mention everybody who did what to whom and whatever, but I'll do my best because there's lots of good, interesting people in here.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go, guys. Heck, right, Charlton Heston. He plays the lead role of Moses, and also he does the voice of God at the burning bush. Yul Brenner plays Ramesses II. Anne Baxter plays Nefertiri. Edward G. Robinson plays Dathan, the naughty guy.
Yeah.
Yvonne DiCarlo plays Sephiroth, as he plays the lady that marries Moses. Deborah Paget plays Lilia, who's
Yeah.
got a thing for Joshua.
Yeah, and that's an
John
interesting
Derrick
one.
plays Joshua, very handsome young man. Sir Cedric Hardwick plays Seti the First. I can't think of anyone else better suited to play the
And
role.
Vincent Price plays Balak,
look.
even though that's only a short role. How short, you may ask?
I'm doing the
Well,
cast.
he did the he
Hello.
did scene he did Act 1 and Act 2, which doesn't go
He
that
did
long.
a couple. He got killed off. Okay? Now,
gets
what
killed
I
off.
was going to say is, other actors included, before I was rudely interrupted, Vincent Price, Judith Anderson, John Carradine, and Martha Scott. And there was a slew of other people in there, but you get the idea they had was top-heavy and really well-known actors and actresses. And I do use the word actresses there. I know it's not politically correct. I'm sorry, but that's the way I was brought up. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, irrespective, before Sarah takes over, I can't think of anything. I think there's a lot of stuff about this, isn't there? This movie.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about this
Yeah.
movie. It has so much in it.
I mean, it was put up for lots of nominations at the Oscars and different things. Didn't get a lot because obviously
It only got
other movies, special effects,
nominated.
wasn't it?
It only won one award,
For special effects,
special
wasn't it? Yeah,
effects, not for
But they
story
were
or
nominated for about
directing,
another 7 or 8 things or something. So they still got pretty
or
good.
even good actors.
But this movie is still being held in high regard even today by the people in the industry. So it was good. That's one of the reasons why we're doing it. Okay.
Yes.
I think you can take over telling the story now. I can't think of anything I want to talk
Yes.
about.
So the story begins where Cecil DeMille, he narrates the production throughout. Whenever he does the narration, where he even says the famous lines from the Bible, like, and then there was light and all that stuff.
Yeah, did a bit of a genesis at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
He sort of
He
did
has
that
a
bit.
great, unique voice in
He had a
this.
good voice. Yeah.
A very informative one that
Yeah.
tells you what's going on.
And in the beginning, blah, 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 and then later on they had transitions and they'd do a voiceover to join some scenes together about the Exodus and different things. Well, he did a voiceover then and different things.
Yeah,
and
so
it all worked, I think.
yeah, so you, as you know, guys know, the Egyptians are kind of badly brutalizing the Hebrews. They've enslaved them and forgot about their promise to Joseph to make them equals in their world, but
They got cheated.
got cheated badly, given a bad hand, as I put it.
And they were taken there as friends beginning, and then they were turned into slaves.
Yeah, it's not mentioned in
they
this
ripped them
movie,
off.
but this is what happened after Joseph kicked the bucket and the old pharaoh died, and the Egyptians took advantage of them.
I think the people, the Hebrew race, were going through a famine or something. They came there to seek help, and they
Don't leave.
they got screwed over, and they turned up, instead of coming as refugees, ended up being slaves in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, not good.
So anyway, moving on. So one day the pharaoh gets word that there was an evil star entering the area, and hints that there is a possible chosen one that might lead the Egyptians to a possible.
No, not the Egyptians.
I mean, not Egyptians, the Hebrews.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
The chosen one, the Messiah
Yeah.
they've been waiting for.
Yes, and the Pharaoh's solution to the problem was to kill off every newborn in the area. because that's what the star means. That it declares the birth of a savior. Hence the
Or
term.
saviour or deliverer or something rather. Because you
Yeah.
actually, yeah.
So the pharaoh declared this, and um, Yoshabel and her daughter Marion quickly act and take baby Moses, which turns out to be Charlton Heston's son, Francis Heston, who's given the offer to act in the role because during the time Charlton Heston was over in Egypt filming the scenes on location, Cecil DeMille asked Charlton Heston's wife, when's your baby going to be due? And she says probably in February. And if it was a boy, he would get the role as Moses as a baby. And you'll behold, it was a boy. So they cast him in this role. And of course, no auditions, so they just went ahead. So they went. So back to the story. So Moses was set off on the little basket. He was set on by his mum to.
Row your boat. That's right.
Yeah. So he was set off down the river, and where he meets what's the name? The princess. What's her name? Bithia. Yeah, Bithia, whose husband passed away recently, and she had no children.
Any children with him. Yeah.
Yeah, so
which is sad.
yeah, so
And no IVF back in those days either.
So she was given an opportunity to raise Moses, and she swore her servant to secrecy to not reveal this to anyone. So I don't know how she was able to keep that quiet, from the whole world, especially her own father and mother.
Well, her servant was she Hebrew as well? Yeah, Mennonite?
I don't know if
she was a slave anyway.
She was I think she was a slave, but she was never in Hebrew.
No, she's an ordinary slave. Yeah, maybe an Egyptian. Yeah. It didn't like the idea of Moses being coming in there as a Hebrew.
Yeah,
and being raised.
I guess she thought it was blasphemous or whatever the word is.
They hated them. Racial bias. How's that? Yeah,
yes, So years later, we see Charlton Heston as Moses coming back from Ethiopia after a long war. Well, not war.
Or, a sort of a battle, but he also made peace with them as well.
He made a peace treaty between the two countries, and this is where we meet Setis and Ramesses and Nefertiri, who, as it turns out to be, Moses is a love interest.
Well, well.
And another interesting thing about this story is that I found out that Cecil DeMille changed the name because he didn't want any boob jokes on the poor actress' expense.
What are you talking about?
Nefertiri?
Yeah.
They changed the name.
Did they?
They changed it to Nefertiri instead of Nefertiti.
Okay. Well, very good.
Because
I
they
didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I understand what he's trying to be nice to his actors. I understand where he's coming from.
Okay.
So anyway, moving on back to the story. So, let me see. He was then ordered by Seti to build his next city,
a treasure city,
full of the Ethiopians' treasures and stuff like that.
Like a big monumental sort of city for him to,
Of course, Ramesses was going to be doing this job, but
he couldn't do it.
But dear old Moses was assigned to the role.
Yeah, well, Ramesses flicked the job out and did say, well, I can't do it. The slaves don't really see if you can do better, pretty much.
Yeah.
And he said, you won't be able to do it. And he did. He actually made the treasure city and did it really, really good.
Yeah, in fact, anyway, then we flash forward to the building of it, and like Ramesses predicted, most of the people had a hard time because most of them were exhausted, didn't have any food, and let's just say they were not feeling really up to the job.
Like most workers nowadays.
We also meet Joshua and Lilia, who is a lovey-dovey couple, and we also meet Dathan, who is a traitor to the Jewish people.
Yeah, he's a Hebrew, but he's he's sucking up to the Egyptian guy.
Yeah, he's
yeah.
what's the word?
Could be an overseer or
An
something.
overseer who is sort of a supervisor
Yeah,
of
but a
sorts.
real mongrel.
Yeah, he's a bit of a gossip mongrel.
Yeah. Didn't love his own people. Was more interested in loving himself and sucking up to everybody.
Yeah, and he was assigned by Ramesses to go and find this
Just
chosen one,
deliver a person.
because Ramesses is set the task by Setis to find this deliverer,
Yes.
and he's not doing a good job at it.
Well, it said he gave him a little bottle. Said if this deliverer is a myth bringing to me in this bottle, if he's a man bringing him to me in chains or something or other. Yeah.
Yes. So anyway, they didn't need a deliverer. As it turns out, Moses turned out to be a great employer to work for, as even Moses, even in his good incapacity, helped a poor lady who turned out to be his mum from being crushed to death by the
He didn't know it was
rocks.
his mum. His biological mother, who he'd never met.
And he also gave the slaves the chance to have a ration of grain and a day of rest.
Yeah, well, he broke into the temple granaries, where it's supposed to be the grain was supposed to be put aside for the gods, but the people were starving, so he went in there with some slaves and broke open the silos, and they made lots of bread and stuff to feed the slaves, and they're happy and healthier and fitter, and they worked better.
Yeah, he did.
Ha-ha.
And of course, Seti heard about it and thought that
He said, is he doing it for his glory or my glory? Yeah, somewhere.
yes, he does go with Ramesses to see the final stages of the construction, and he got to witness the what was it, the obelisk being raised by say millions of slaves.
Thousands, not millions, but yeah, it had this raising an obelisk, a huge one, so tallest in the world.
Yeah.
But not necessarily. It just sounds good for the movie.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, and of course Moses proves both to Ramesses and Seti that the city was made of brick. The stronger they're many, the starving they're few, the dead make none.
Yeah.
Meaning proving a point that you cannot starve your people and then make them expect to build the city.
If you got a horse, you're going to feed him and look after him, and he'll work well for you. You'll be able to ride him anytime you like, and he'll be strong and healthy. Well, same with a slave.
Yeah.
So
and Setis was impressed by this,
yeah.
and he says that he promises to Moses that he'll get his name carved on every pilot on the temple.
Every monument and obelisk and everything, and have his name written next to his. Wow.
And of course, Ramesses was going to get it nowhere.
Yeah, in the toilet.
Yeah. And of course, as Setis and Moses walk away, Ramesses is, annoyed, and he says that that the city he builds will bear my name. The woman he loves will bear my child, and so it'll be written, and so will be done. Yeah. This is sort of the same quote they use throughout this movie.
So it'll be written, let it be done. Yeah. I like that one.
Yeah. So meanwhile, Nefertiti, who's talking to her servant Memnet, that's the servant that was
the main one,
that belonged to Moses' mum. She then tells her that Moses is not going to be the chosen pharaoh because he is a Hebrew.
Yeah. The son of a Hebrew slave.
Yeah, and in her only way we could think of that Nefertiti could do was kill Memnet by throwing her off the balcony.
Yeah. And
killing her.
That gets rid of the problem.
Yeah, but it doesn't stop there. Memnet left sort of a leftover baby blanket that had the markings of Hebrew.
Hebrew weave. Yeah.
Weaved.
Yeah. Pattern. Yeah.
Yeah, and Moses discovers this in Nefertiti's room, and he then goes to his mother to find out what is going on.
And she breaks down a bit, and
she
lets him know a bit, and he goes and finds his biological mother.
Yeah, well, she goes first to them in order to get them to leave the country so that Moses will never find them.
Yeah,
but fortunately, dear old Moses appears and tells her reminds her that only Pharaoh is allowed to free slaves,
Yeah.
not the princess of Egypt is allowed to free.
Exactly. So anyway, irrespective, he meets his biological mother and see all is revealed and
Yeah,
well,
and of course Moses has to. Well, then we flash forward to say a few days later, maybe I'm not sure,
oh yeah, a day or two later, a week later,
and we
whatever.
see
Yeah.
Moses in the mud pits with all the other slaves,
Yeah.
and he's working hard in the mud pits, and
Yeah, brick making area. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and where he watches firsthand the horrible treatment from the other slaves get.
The overseers and their leading hands or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Meanwhile, he then meets up with Lydia, who, I mean, yeah, Lydia, who,
Lydia, who's Lydia?
I mean, the girl, the water girl.
You keep changing people's names.
Sorry, Lydia.
I'll tell you. Lilia.
Lilia, sorry. So Lilia,
Lydia was a tattooed lady after Jamarx.
okay,
Yeah.
so she gives him some water and tells him that he sounds and looks familiar to her, like she knew him from a previous whatever.
Encounter.
Meanwhile, Balak, who's played by Vincent Price, I mentioned, also notices her and wants to make her into a house slave. More like,
Amongst other things.
yes.
She was a good looking babe.
Yes, so, and Moses, and she's not the only one who gets promoted. As it turns out, Moses, after he tries to help an old man who gets, who was in the mud pit, was badly speared because he refused to work.
And he spoke what he thought.
Yeah, told them that not to, that they're men, not animals, and all stuff. And the man took a sort of a straw cutter and stabbed him in the
threw it at him
stomach.
and stabbed him, and killed him.
In
Shame, shame, shame.
yeah, and of course the old man gets carried off by Moses, and the old man says in the most interesting moment in this movie where he says that death was better than bondage, and how that his prayers remain unanswered, and Moses asked, "What prayer is that?" And he says, "Let before death close my eyes,
See the face of my deliverer."
and that will lead all men to freedom." And he closed his eyes, and not aware that
He
the
was
deliverer
looking at him.
is right there in front of him.
Holding him. Bugger.
Yeah, and then of course Moses is promoted to work the mud.
Yeah, so he got a promotion. He's now he's a mud mixer thing.
Yes.
Mixer, whatever.
So, but
He's
that's
a cement mixer. No.
yeah, but that doesn't last long. As it turns out, Nefertiti, who's in the area,
Yeah, she
offers
sees
him to be one of her men on a barge.
Yeah, she knew who he was.
Yes, she noticed him right away. So she asks. He was ordered out of the mud pit and follows after her. And of course, they have a bit of a romantic moment, even though deep down he knows that he cannot go back to the palace and pretend everything is all better.
Yeah, he wants to be there for his people and try to do something.
Yeah.
And she says, well, why don't you come back and be Pharaoh? And if it's become Pharaoh, then you can do something about their problems.
Yeah, you can release them if you want to.
Yeah, but he didn't quite see it that way. He said, I have something to do before I...
Yeah, he said that he promises he'll come to the Pharaoh's Jubilee, but before then he has something important to do. He has to save...
has unfinished
He has to
business.
save...
Joshua, wasn't it?
no, not Joshua.
Lilia?
Lilia,
Yeah.
from being a slave to Balak.
Yes.
So he goes there, and of course, is all dressed up in finery.
Really nice duds.
Yeah, she would not recognize her. She looks like if she was a princess in.
She looked really hot.
And Joshua appears, and he sets fire to the stables.
That's right, yeah.
And he tries to fight off Balak best as he can, but he's outmanned by his men.
Yeah, lots of slaves and other
And
soldiers and stuff.
Balak plans to whip him to death. So, but luckily enough, Joshua is not the begging sort. He's more the strong, capable sort.
Yeah, go Joshua, yeah.
Eventually, Moses appears and then fights Balak and kills him. which he's hinted in the story that in Moses' story that he did stand up for the Hebrew in the story
Yeah.
and killed an Egyptian.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why he was banished.
Yes. Anyway, this is where Joshua realizes that right then and there that Moses is the very chosen one to lead them out of bondage and all that. And who else has heard this? None other than Dathan.
The naughty guy.
And Dathan, in his acting cryptically in the next scene
Yep.
with Ramesses, he tries to tell them about who most likely is the savior.
Or deliverer, not
Deliverer.
savior. And he says,
As it turns out,
however, it's going to be really, really good,
Yeah.
and I want lots and lots of
yeah.
money and goodies
Yeah.
for telling you the information.
Yeah, he
So
wants
cut the
him to
deals.
give him his freedom and the water girl, Lydia,
And Balak's house.
Balak's house, everything, and more.
Yeah.
And of course, dear old Ramesses says, "I'll give you all this, but if you do not give me the answer, I'll slash your throat."
Pretty much. Good retirement plan, hey, folks.
And of
Yeah.
course, Dathan gives in and says the deliverer is Moses. And of course, Ramesses says, why would an Egyptian would go ahead and do that?
Because he's not.
Yes.
Ah.
And Dathan admits that Moses is not Egyptian; he's Hebrew, and this gives Ramesses the leverage he looking for
Exactly.
against Moses, so he can have it all too. So on the day of the Jubilee, everything is in full swing. Dances, food, what's the works.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Yeah.
Yeah,
Whatever.
And everyone is awaiting Moses to appear. And then Ramesses presents the Pharaoh with a gift, the empty bottle, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
And he then mentions that his promise about the myth. If the
deliverer be a myth, bring him to me in the bottle. If he's a man, bring him to me in chains.
Yes, and he says that the reason the bottle is empty is because he's no myth.
Aha.
And then he summons the Moses, and this is like a mirror reflect reference to the first opening scene when Moses appeared as a hero. But now he appears as a slave in this scene.
Yeah, opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. Mirror reflections. 1 minute he's a hero to the public. The next moment he's a slave and a traitor.
Yeah.
And this is where Ramesses says to the public tells the Egyptians that Moses is a traitor and the fact he's the chosen one and yada yada yada. And Moses says he's not sure if he's the one, but if he was able to release these slaves, he would.
So I said he was a bit annoyed.
Yeah, but he doesn't have it in himself to punish Moses because he loves him dearly like a son.
Yeah, so he said, Ramesses, you do it.
And he even banishes dear old Bethia because she deceived him all those years.
So I don't want to see you around here anymore. So she was obviously sent to another palace somewhere, or
just banished.
No, she would have sent another palace or another room, or another area, so they wouldn't have to see each other. Yeah.
Yeah. So and this was a brief warning that Moses got when he heard from Nefertiti earlier, saying that Bethia would probably be exiled or sentenced to death. So she's given a lighter sentence by being exiled.
Yeah.
So she's gotten get a better end of the stick, so to speak.
It didn't die.
No, that's a relief.
Yeah,
But she's gonna lose her own son, even though it's not her legitimate son.
But she raised him.
Yeah. So anyway, then Seti said while Moses has been dragged off to he walks off to the dungeons. He then says that Moses' name will be stricken from all public, from every obstacles and temples and scriptures, which explains why we never have any historic documents about Moses.
His name was taken out.
Yeah.
History was rewritten.
Yeah. Yeah, if you guys look it up, you'll find that it's a little hard to find Moses. Although it does mention a detailed document of the plagues that went
Yeah, that was it.
down.
But it didn't actually mention Moses there. Hey, once my just when Moses was there leading the people out, yada
And we
yada.
don't know
Yeah.
the name of the real pharaoh who really did
No,
fight
but
against him.
actually, we won't go into that because they just use Ramesses and Seti and
They're famous
Nefertari and
names,
stuff.
these guys.
Yeah,
Bear in mind.
no, these names are well known. I mean, Tutankhamun would have come there if he was a bit older, but yeah, but he died young.
Yeah,
So,
everyone knows
yeah.
Tutankhamun was 19 when he died.
Yeah, so he couldn't come in it. But they used to use some names which everyone knew. Oh, they're there back then. We'll bung them in.
Yeah.
But they're not the right people at the right time. But we're not going to go into that. I mean,
Yeah.
This is not an archaeological
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah. So meanwhile, Ramesses and Nefertari came to Moses in the dungeon, and Ramesses says he's going to let Moses live, but he's going to be sent off in exile too eventually.
Yeah.
And so, that's his punishment. Meanwhile, while this is happening, Dathan is settling into Balak's house, and he's made Lilia his servant for him, and she begs him not to damage herself, But he says that, but if she doesn't give in, then Joshua is going to be sentenced to a horrible death on the spikes or in the mines of
Copper mines in
yeah. So
somewhere.
he's given the choice of either dying on a spikes
Whatever that is.
or given life to live in the mines. So she's given the hard choice of giving her body up to Dathan.
Yeah.
So this is kind of sad, and the worst part is that when her family hears about this, they kind of disowned her and don't want anything to do with her.
She had a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she gave up her
But the point is that
freedom to.
the options weren't very good. I mean, either be there and let yourself be taken advantage of, or probably be beaten or die. I mean, I would have chosen her way, probably.
Yeah.
If I was a female.
She kind of made a very difficult choice, and
Hard, yeah.
and even though that she had to give
Anyway.
up the man she loved.
This is a 4-hour movie. We're going
Okay, sorry. Okay, moving on. Moses is taken to down the road to get himself ready to head off to exile. They give him 1 day rations of bread and water.
Which is far less
Yeah, meaning
than he really needs. It's several days, maybe a week to get across the desert.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so Moses then is also offered his mother's robe that she passed away not too long ago.
That's right, yeah, Yosabel, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he makes his months
What?
journey across the
desert.
desert.
Whatever. I don't know if it's a couple of weeks or a week. We don't know.
Yeah, it could have been months. I
We
like
don't
to.
know.
Anyway, so he wanders the desert for so many periods of time, and during the nighttime he hears of voices. I often think they're
wind.
voices of people who are suffering because in Egypt.
Maybe God was talking to him. Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway, he finally made his way to a well in Midian.
Yeah. I don't know how far away is Media from Egypt.
Well, I don't know. It's somewhere. It could be in Sinai Peninsula, or it could be in Egypt. It could be in Bali, for all I know.
Anyway, he may have been walking around in circles for all I know, too.
He could have been next door to. Yeah, tell us.
Anyway, Moses soon arrives there, and he meets let me see, how many girls were there?
7.
7 daughters of Sheikh of Midian, whatever they call it. and they get attacked by ruffians, Amalekites, I think they
The
were.
7 daughters, the 7 girls were the daughters of Jethro, who was a
Yeah,
Bedouin sheik.
Okay, Jethro the sheik.
Yeah, Jethro, a Bedouin sheik.
Yeah, so of course they get attacked by some ruffians.
Amalekites.
Yeah, and
Oh,
they
no,
want
that's
to
the one, isn't
demand
it?
water from their well, which is not theirs.
Well, it's her father Jethro's well. He actually had it built, dug, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
and
yeah.
had his title on the well.
His name was on it.
Yeah, of course Moses steps in, attacks them, tells them to get lost.
And all the girls love him. Oh, it's
Yeah.
there's not a lot of young men in this area.
Yeah,
So,
one of the actresses who plays one of the young
yeah.
girls is about 18 years of
Oh,
age.
no, 16, wasn't he?
Yeah, 18 or 16.
Yeah, you were really young, yeah.
She was underage, and she was not allowed to be in the company of the older actors too much.
Yeah, unless she was being acting or something rather. She couldn't socialise with them.
Yeah, she couldn't socialize with Charlton Heston unless her mother was present.
Her mother might have liked it.
Oh, don't go there, Mike.
sorry.
We don't
Okay,
want we
sorry.
don't want to have the same incident happen with Errol Flynn.
Yeah, okay.
So anyway, moving on. So Moses makes his acquaintance to the sheik, and they agreed to allow him to stay at their convenience.
And he helps them and becomes a valued member of the tribe.
Yeah, he helps become a valuable shepherd amongst their people.
And a very good negotiator. He got the other sheiks in the area to pull their sheepskins, or what was it, sheepskins? They were selling, whatever, and he got a good price for their stuff at market because he sold it as a job lot, and then they just divvied up the profits.
Yeah, and in return for his valuable services, what's his name again?
Jethro.
Jethro offers.
Think of the Beverly Hillbillies. Jethro.
Okay, Jethro offers Moses either seven of his daughters for a wife.
Either, not all of them.
One of them
One
anyway.
his daughters. 7? Well, yeah.
Yes, of course, 6 of them are going to dance for Moses, while
oldest
Sephra, who's the oldest,
Fills up the
goes to
sheep.
tend the sheep, and she's the wisest. Like if she was, if roles
very
were
nice looking.
reversed per se, guys, she would make a really valuable queen.
And actually, that's something about I'll talk about the casting later on, but there was something about her looks that Cecily DeMille liked, and the other people had to wear contact lenses to give their eyes a brownie look to them because their eyes were too grey or blue or whatever. But she was allowed to have her eyes natural, which were a grey colour, because she was going to be special. She was going to be marrying Moses, and she had to be a bit different.
Exactly.
Interesting, hey? Yeah.
So, eventually the girls dance, and Moses likes the girls, but he realizes that he doesn't feel up to choosing.
He wasn't ready. He had unfinished business in his head.
So he goes up to see Sephra and tells her how much. Well, she then talks about his past love back in Egypt that he kind of misses a little bit. That's left a scar on his heart. And dear old, and how she then tells him about how that type of love is fleeting, and that love is that the love that she would offer would be love that will be everlasting.
And she was, I mean, if I had a choice between Sephra and Buggerlugs back at the palace, I would have taken her anyway, because she was a real woman and a real lady, and wasn't just what do you call it? A social animal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
whatever, yeah.
That's the difference between Nefertiti and Sephra. Sephra is the logical but yet
Very nice.
nice quality lady, while Nefertiti is a bit of a flirt and
sexy,
and does anything she wants to willful in order to get what she wants.
Yeah.
So anyway, Moses accepts Sephra as his wife, of course, and she accepts, obviously.
Yeah.
Anyway, when we flash forward and found out Seti's passed away, and his last dying moments, he says Moses.
Yeah, he wasn't going to speak his name ever again, but in his last moments he mentioned his name because
he missed him a lot.
As one would.
Yes.
Oh,
and he probably feels guilty about what he's done. Anyway, moving on. So, we flash forward again,
Another flash.
back to a few more years,
Yeah,
where
well, he's still got a
Moses
kid.
and Sephora have a kid named
little boy?
a little boy
Rastus.
named
Rastus? No.
well, I'm not sure his name. I know it's in the Bible somewhere.
Rastus. No?
Don't be rude.
Okay.
And anyway, Sephora discovers a man amongst their sheep that turns out to be Joshua, who has escaped the mines and
and
has
came
been
looking.
and has come looking for Moses.
And he found him.
Yeah.
Not bad. Didn't even have GPS or any. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, he was lucky.
No
God
social
was
media.
God was on his side for coming all that way to tell Moses to.
We need you.
Yeah. Anyway, Moses then Joshua tells him about a bush that's burning up there, and Moses decides to go investigate it.
Yeah.
So he
meets
climbs.
God.
So he climbs up the Mount Sinai until he sees the burning bush that
And the
you
bush
all
isn't-
know.
The bush isn't being consumed by the flame. So he knew it was a mystical place.
Yeah.
And then he hears God's voice. It sounds remarkably like Charlton Heston's voice,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
that was an idea that Charlton Heston had. He kind of presented this idea while he was at the monastery, where he was discussing it with the rabbi and Cecil DeMille, and he said maybe my voice should be portrayed by, be narrated
God.
as God, and he says that God's voice could be narrated by, be the voice inside your.
Well, yeah, the voice you hear in your head would
Yeah.
be a voice similar to your own. So
Yeah, exactly.
But they just made it a little bit deeper and stuff, a little bit more
Yeah.
authoritative and blah blah blah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was Charlton Heston did that.
Yeah,
voice.
and
But
that
he
was-
didn't do it in the other bit.
Yeah, in the other bit, much later, I'll
Another guy
tell
did
you,
the voice.
it was another person that was uncredited in this movie.
Yeah, I got his name written down somewhere, but yeah, he did the somebody else, and I think he's a member of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir or something or other.
Yeah. So anyway, Moses, after he talked to God, who tells him to go to Egypt and do what he must do, he comes down and his hair is slightly changed.
Yeah, he's a bit
and
whitey.
he's no longer wearing his sandals, which was another hint, John Heston's suggestion that no way Moses would put his shoes back on after
be
he
stunned.
encountered
Yeah.
God.
He said, "What? Yeah." He just shocked, stunned, whatever. He wouldn't have his pole with him. He wouldn't have his shoes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
Well,
have his
actually,
handbag.
he had this pole because that plays a key piece to the whole Moses thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he had his pole. Yeah.
So he then says to Joseph and his wife, he's going to Egypt, and Joshua is thrilled by this. He says, "You are God's messenger. We sent the day of deliverance." And so he asked.
Yippee.
So he said, "We'll get water and bread, and we'll leave at once." And Sephora objects at first, but she finally gives in and says, "Your God is my God." And Moses allows her to come along. And we get a bit of an intermission, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, well, actually, they're putting in the mission. This movie is so long, so yeah. Now, okay, you can go to the toilet now. Yeah, you back?
Okay,
fine.
so
Yeah, well.
and then Cecil comes in and says, so God says, "Go, return to Egypt." And Moses took his wife and his child and took the staff of the rod in his hands, all that stuff. I can't really remember the words, but I know the fact Cecil DeMille says some awesome words throughout this
Actually,
movie.
Sesame Mill's a very good narrator.
Yeah, I love it.
I do like it. Yeah.
He also made a narration at an opening appearance at
Yeah.
the beginning, as I often thought that was really remarkable
called?
when he did that.
An epilogue's at the end. What's the
A prologue.
prologue? Yeah. He had a prologue. He didn't do an epilogue, there, didn't he? Not the end.
No, he didn't.
And everybody lived happily ever after. No, he didn't do one of those. Did he?
No.
yeah,
So anyway, Moses arrives at a sort of a ceremony where they were giving gifts to Pharaoh, offerings, whatever.
So he walks in.
Yeah, and he offers the word of God, and Nefertiti and Ramesses recognize him at once. And of course, Moses, like in the book, we all know, he says, "Let my people go."
And he throws his staff on the ground.
Yeah, or Aaron did, because Aaron always is sort of his right-hand man in this
Or
role.
left-hand man. Or
So he
whatever.
throws down the staff, and then it
into a big
transforms into a
cobra.
snake, and the priests try to throw down their stuff,
And they did the same thing.
but somehow Moses's snake swallows up the two others,
Yeah.
which unseen, but it's pretty much
It's a given.
implied.
And okay.
Yeah, no way can the priest could copy that.
Hey, good trick.
Yeah.
Give us another one.
Yeah, that's what Ramesses said. He says that that because of Moses, the servants, the slaves, will have to,
Make
bricks without straw. So,
Bugger.
so he then, so Moses was so the slaves had to be forced to travel in the woods at night to get them the straw themselves.
Yeah.
And
So it made it work harder.
yeah.
Needless to say, we went through some other plagues, which we won't say each one individually.
Yeah.
Because even the movie didn't go
At
through
one
each
point,
one.
Nefertiti tries to what's the word? Tries to seduce Moses.
Yeah, it would work for me. Yeah,
But
yeah.
he reminds her that he's a married man, and there's no way in hell he's gonna seduce her because he's married. And
Yeah, stuff.
and but Nefertiti doesn't take no for an answer, as it turns out. She tries again, and this time when danger was approaching, that is one of the plagues dealing with the firstborn getting killed, she sends Sephra and his son away
Yep.
to protect them. But I often think there was an alternative motive for that.
Yeah, think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't
so-
know. Think so. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and of course he turns her down like, as she quotes, like a strumpet in the streets.
A strumpet. What a word. Strumpet.
Yes.
I know what a crumpet is. But,
Yes, as I said before, there's many plagues in this movie, as I mentioned, and one of the plagues they couldn't duplicate in this was the frog
frogs.
plague. There was going to be a scene where Nefertiti is sleeping in bed, and these frogs jump on her bed,
yeah,
but they
got these
couldn't.
mechanical frogs. They couldn't get them to work properly.
Yeah,
so just
so-
if it didn't work, they didn't put it in.
Yeah,
So,
they were left with.
hey, that could have been another 5 minutes to the movie, as long enough as it was. You know.
Yeah, true, but I guess they'll have to make cuts here and there.
But anyway, irrespective.
Irrespective, the word of mouth is better than nothing, as I often say.
So they referred to the other plagues, the locusts, the frogs, and other good groovy
Yeah,
things.
they
and
did.
whatever.
We do get to see the Red Sea, which is
Well,
awesome.
not the Red Sea, the river.
The river
red.
turning red with blood.
Yeah, which was a damn good special effect. We won't tell you anything about the special effect. You're gonna have to watch the movie yourself. But
the only thing I could tell you that they had a pipe underneath the water stage where it pumps out red liquid.
Yes, like a hose. Yes, I know this.
And there was an interesting scene where Ramses was pouring water from an actual jar, and there was a bit of a sort of secret compartment in it that had red liquid
it
in
had two
it.
compartments inside the jug, so it started pouring water, and then all of a sudden it started pouring the
Yeah.
red liquid out.
And this is before CGI and other things.
That's
kind
not
of
a magic trick, that one.
Yeah, but it's a clever magic trick, an old-fashioned one that you
a
never
real one.
think about.
Anyway,
Moving on, so the next one we do get to see is the Hail and 3 Days of Darkness,
that sort of stuff.
and of course it was really cool.
And Ramesses is still being a pain in the neck.
Yeah, he still refuses to give in, even after his priest and his generals tell him to give in eventually.
We can't fight this guy. Yeah.
Yeah, they said they can't fight plagues with swords.
Yeah, and then Ramesses getting really annoyed at Moses, and Moses said, "Well, the next plague will be what's the word?
He says that
The king of the Pharaoh will nominate what the next plague's going to be, or something." And
Yeah.
he makes a comment. The firstborn of Hebrew.
yeah, the firstborn of Egypt will.
Yeah, no,
firstborn of
Hebrew.
Hebrew will die.
But it reflected back on him, and God meant the firstborn of Egypt. He put the curse on the Egyptians.
Yeah. Somehow,
yeah.
dear old, of course, as I said before, Nefertiti goes to warn her Sephra and Moses' son about this, and they were sent off to parts unknown.
Anyway,
So
the angel of death goes through there.
of course Moses warns her that there's a chance that Ramesses' son will get killed eventually too, But she denies all fact that Moses will kill her son because it's her son, duh. But
and
this is
yeah,
not up to him. This
up
is
to God.
God's decisions. So this is up to him. God, anyway, not. So meanwhile, they Moses eventually declares to everyone to make sure you have some blood on your doors.
Yeah, get some lamb's blood and mark around your door so the angel of death will pass safely.
Yes, and
leave the people inside. Uh, uh, um, Keep them safe and out of harm's way.
yes,
Yeah.
and Joshua makes his duty to do the same for
Where Lilia.
yeah, and Dathan live.
Dathan didn't know about this. He
Yeah.
didn't want any blood on his door.
Yeah, he thinks that if he was labeled blood on his door,
It'd make him Hebrew again. The Egyptians wouldn't like him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, never mind.
But Joshua has heart set on saving his love interest.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
moving right along. So, they then have that ceremony where they're inside, and we hear a lot of screaming and screeches from
Now,
outside.
the firstborn, it didn't say first male, did it?
No, just
So
firstborns.
the firstborns. So what would happen? Anyone firstborn, no matter what age,
And what
Yeah.
sex you are.
yeah, they would just drop you off. Yeah.
Yeah, and what age range doesn't matter.
Yeah, it didn't say male or female either. I don't
It's
think,
just
no.
firstborn, period.
Yeah. So that people dropping off there, and in the end, the good old Pharaoh says, "Enough," and he said he exiles the Hebrews, and he said, "Okay, go, bugger off. Don't want you here no more." You know,
Yeah, and of course, Ramses' son is dead, and he then tries to pray on a sort of a altar that's pretty much that won't answer back.
statue of a jackal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, not a jackal, it was a hawk.
Hawk,
With
whatever.
a-
Wasn't that Horus?
Lord of Darkness, I don't
Yeah,
know.
they
I'm
got-
not a friend.
Not Horus. That's the other guy.
Anyway,
Horus?
moving
Yeah,
on.
whatever.
The next morning, we get the big announcement from Aaron that arise, that behold the dawn of freedom, where and all horns sound, and this is where the scene we mentioned earlier about the millions and millions and trillions of people that they
about 14,000 people, not
14,000
millions and
people that Cecil DeMille employed to do this scene.
Think of the catering bill.
I'm thinking about the costume bill.
Yeah.
No, maybe not the costume bill, because if you look at if you go to Middle East, you notice the costumes, the clothing hasn't changed.
They still
over
wear
the years.
those Galabeos and everything, and
Yeah.
yes, they have the same sort of clothes.
So the costumes
in many
hasn't
cases.
changed very
Yeah,
much over
but
the
even
years.
back in those days, there wouldn't be contemporary stuff. They might still be wearing sandals. They have a Galabeo on, or whatever. Yeah,
And most of the time, the headdresses, the cattle haven't changed. The people still probably have cattle and
ducks
and stuff like
sheep
that, and look
stuff,
after that.
Yeah. So so a bit of close-up work you might have had of people for the people dressed up, but still 14,000 odd people plus about 15,000 odd animals and stuff, and that's a lot of livestock, a lot of people to take care of. And actually, let's just stop for a minute. Where are these people actually coming out of Egypt there, that big facade of the temple, that's all being made out of wood and stuff. It's just only a wooden facade to make it look like it's real.
Yeah.
Behind that was all the cafeterias and accommodation and and the corrals for the animals and everything.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't know. And that wasn't far from the Giza Plateau, from memory, was it?
Yeah.
Where the three pyramids are.
Of course, when they built the set itself, so you know what Cecil DeMille said when he first saw it? He said, "Paint it."
Well, probably.
I think that he just thought it needs to be look more, but more modern.
Well,
Or not
no,
modern, just something that's done today, not last year.
No, I think what he means to say it may look like stone and stuff like it looks like now, but you want to make it look like it was made 3,000 years ago with the right paint that they would have put on
Yeah,
it.
because back then, despite the back years ago, now the paint would have been chipped off now,
Well,
but
the sand would have and the wind and stuff would have ripped off, like sandpaper. Yeah.
but back then it would have been fresh paint.
Fresh and new. Yeah, exactly right.
So anyway,
Carry on.
so Moses and his people then take their leave, and it was an awesome scene. I liked how they moved in sequence in this.
Yeah,
it was really incredible.
They got it organised properly, and they left. And then Pharaoh changed his mind and chased them a couple of days later.
Yeah, and
Heading off towards Red Sea, obviously.
yeah, and of course Nefertiti is all looking forward to Moses' blood spirit on the
Yeah, so
sword.
come back with Moses' blood on your sword.
And of course, Ramses says to mingle with your own, meaning he's pissed that
Yeah.
she was throwing herself at Moses' feet
And Moses, the next scene you have Moses at the Red Sea with his people.
yeah, and they're making plans on where to go next.
And all of a sudden they hear thundering hooves in the distance.
Yeah.
Aha.
Yeah, and they thought, well, Joshua thought that they might use some of their carts and some of their and their equipment to fend them off, but they didn't have anything stronger than.
And Moses told them to pull back, and God came in and did this big pillar of fire there.
Yeah.
As a boundary, so
Yeah.
they couldn't come through.
Yeah, Dathan kept interjecting in here and there, saying that if we go, where are we going to go now? Round the sea? How long will that fire last? All that
Blah,
stuff.
blah, blah, blah,
And of
blah.
course, there's the most memorable scene in this movie where Moses raises his hands, and this is where my favorite bit. He then
Red
God
Sea
opens up, and it was
Now,
so
I'm
cool.
going to stop here. This special effect was done in Egypt, and it was also done in the studios back in America.
Yeah, cool.
It was, I don't want to say too much about it, but they made the parting of the Red Sea, the main parts of it, in a large car park at the studios there. They had a huge water tank in there, and they did stuff, and they did some waterfalls. They inverted them and till the things are 9-degree angles. They did a lot of work and matte paintings and everything to bring this together.
Yeah.
The guy who put this together,
Cecil.
no, the guy, he's director of special effects, whatever.
yeah.
That guy who put that together was a genius, even by today's standards. I think he's still held in high regard for that special effect.
Yeah. Anyway, it was really incredible, and I like the quote one of the actors said in this movie where he says, "God opened the sea with the blast of his nostrils."
Yeah,
I love that bit of
Lucky
funny
he didn't
joke.
sneeze. Wouldn't have been any water there at all.
Yeah. Anyway, Joshua leads the people into the river or whatever.
Well, across the Red Sea.
The Red Sea, and of course some people are still freaked out or
And anyway,
what?
are we going to be talking all night?
Well, I think it was extraordinary, the scene. Everyone
know.
was watching it. It was like, wow, it's like they're
I was just saying how wonderful it was.
yeah.
It's marvellous.
Yeah, eventually the fire dies down, and of course, like clockwork, the Pharaoh and
The
his
Hebrew were almost to the other side.
yeah, and Pharaoh's soldiers, they then make their way across there, which not thinking at the time that maybe, just maybe, it will come down upon them.
And guess what? Once the Hebrew got the other side, God cleared his nose and let the water come back in again. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And drowned all the troops that were following the Hebrew.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and they were dead.
Ramses goes back home to his missus, wanting to kill her, and she said, "Where's Moses' blood?" And he throws his sword down and says, something about he really is God or something or other?
You know, he says, his God is God.
Yeah, So he finally accepts the fact that Moses' God is a real God.
And I think that we were discussing not last night that how some people came into Egypt and kind of
I think
took over.
Now, if you go through history, well, I'm not talking about history now, but just a quickie. People say, "Oh yes, this didn't really happen." Well, I read a lot of archaeological and Egyptology books. Back in those days, if you do a revised chronology, I'm not going to go into who did it and whatever, there was a massive depopulation of Egypt way back at that period of time, and I think the Hittites or someone came in and took over for a period of time because the massive depopulation, they lost so many troops. They had the slaves had gone, everything was going pear-shaped there, and the other guys almost just walked in and took over.
Yeah.
I think it was the Hittites. I can't remember at the moment, but yeah, I don't think it was Nebateans or Nubians or somebody. I think it was Hittites. But the point still remains is it was a cakewalk for them. Of course, everything went to poo for them back then, about 3,000 years ago.
Yeah, makes sense.
Actually, revised chronology, I think it was Emmanuel Velikovsky, the guy who was in charge of the Israeli university or museum or something, university, and he did a revised chronology, and everything locks in, and you actually see how it all works. So, anyone who's interested, go and have a check out of the Emmanuel Velikovsky's books about covering the revised chronology and stuff. You'll probably find out that what I'm saying is true. I don't care if you do or don't, because it's up to you, but it makes for a very good read.
Yes.
Anyway,
So
moving right along.
moving right along. So the Hebrews arrive at the Mount Sinai, and Moses went up to the mountain for 40 days and 40
Yeah,
nights.
yeah.
And to all his people downstairs, they think he's
He
long
might be
dead.
because, yeah.
And Joshua went up there too.
Yeah,
and
not all the way up.
Yeah, just halfway up.
We're waiting for him to come back.
Yeah,
What
and
a good friend.
so Dathan and Aaron and all the rest of the Hebrews, they have a brief meeting of sorts.
Yeah, Dathan takes over. So we should go back to Egypt and ask for forgiveness and go in there and get food and stuff and whatever.
Yeah.
And we must carry a statue of one of their gods before us, and hence they made the golden calf.
Yeah.
Aaron knew how to do the gold leaf and stuff, and they taught him into doing it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
They used the gold they took from
The Egyptians? Yeah.
and that's when all things begin to go out of control
And
from
they had
there.
an orgy and stuff. Hey, really good.
Yeah, exactly the things that God wanted Moses to write up about when he was up there writing up the Ten Commandments for him.
Actually, I think when you I'm not going.
And I often think that
Yeah.
when Moses was up there with God, that time stands still up there when you're with
Maybe,
God.
maybe.
Like, you could be up there for 40 days or 40 nights, and for Moses, this might have been an hour and 2 hours that may have
Yeah, who
passed.
knows? Don't know. But irrespective, but I think if you want to go on the spiritual side, maybe he was waiting for 40 days to pass down in the camp to see if the people would stay focused on their escape plan and what Moses had planned for them with God's help,
Yeah.
or they're going to go back their evil ways and whatever, and it gave them time to get dissension amongst the troops and whatever.
Yeah, so meanwhile, so Moses, so God begins to make the Ten Commandments for him, and it's the most awesome scene. And of course, all through it, he says it in his God voice. And this is the actor we mentioned earlier that it remains uncredited in the Ten Commandments to this
I have
day.
his name here somewhere. I'll have a look.
There was a thought of using a mixture of different actors, male actors, for the God's voice, or bring back Charlton Heston to do the role, but they decided to do someone else for this one. Although it's hard to tell between this one and Charlton Heston's voice because
They're very similar,
they
very
look
similar,
very
yeah.
similar.
I don't know. I had it written down here somewhere. A lot of notes here. Here it is. I'm really good here in my notes. A guy called Jesse Delos Dukes. He was a member of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, and they got him to do it.
So
Yeah.
he was assigned to do this very scene, just this scene, of saying the Ten Commandments one by one.
Shall not kill.
Yeah. And meanwhile, while this is happening, the things were, as I said before, things went out of control. Everything that God was writing down, they were doing. Adultery, idolizing, fornicating, things that you may have seen in Sodom and Gomorrah, all that
sort
stuff.
of stuff. Yeah, they're doing all the good groovy
Yeah.
things.
All sorts of stuff.
Anyway,
Stealing and all that stuff.
all the naughty bits.
Yeah, of course, some of Moses' followers, the loyal ones, remain mournful for Moses and at the same time refuse to pay part of this orgy.
Yeah. And anyway, Moses comes back down the hill
And
and Ten
the
Commandments.
ones who were among the people who refused to do this was Sephra and
all the good guys.
and Bethlehem. What's her name?
Bethia?
Yeah, Bethlehem, Moses' stepmom. She came along to take to take part in this
Exodus.
Exodus,
Yeah.
and she she became a Hebrew in her own way.
Yeah, probably. And,
Yeah.
and probably a follower of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
anyway,
Moses comes back down the hill.
yeah. So before he goes down, God says, "Go get the Ten Commandments down, for my people have corrupted themselves."
Big
And
time.
he does come down, and the scene where you see Joshua just lying there by some rocks, a little exhausted, and he kneels down before Moses, and we see Moses' hair and face and beard have grown
Yeah.
and look a bit whiter,
Yeah.
hinting that, again, he's seen God again, and hints that it's slightly changed his
Now,
appearance again.
moving right along.
Yeah, and of course, they both head down to where the
camp.
party orgy was happening, and dear old Joshua blows the his
Ram horn or
ram
whatever.
horn. Yeah, and
right.
everyone looks up and sees Moses there,
Bugger.
and Sapphira is the first one who says, "Moses,"
I love you, darling. Where you been?
Yes, and Moses says, "You have sinned a great sin. You have not worthy for these
Yeah,
rules."
and all of you who believe, come to me. And then those ones huddled towards him on the bottom of rocks there, and then he threw the 10 Commandments
Yeah.
at the golden calf.
And he blew up, and
the ground
Dathan
opened
and
up.
Dathan's
And the
brother
ground-
and some of the other naughty people, they get sucked down with the
fall
calf.
out. It's like in San Francisco earthquake.
Well, not exactly like that, but I often
Like a
think.
big hole in the ground.
But
yeah.
it's in the Bible that
They do.
Dathan and his brother and a few other people got
Gobbled up.
punished for this.
Yeah, they died.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
it leads on from here.
yeah. So Cecil goes on and says that these followers of Moses, they continue wandering the wilderness for 40 years.
Until such time as the last of the wrongdoers, partygoers, had passed away, so their children could pass into the promised land.
Yeah. And of course, Moses, he couldn't come into the land because God was angry at him for disobeying him for the waters of strife.
In the Bible, he sort of supposedly, I believe, God said, "No, wait, I think I need some water," and God said, "Tap that rock with your staff." So he tapped the rock with the staff. The water didn't come. So he tapped it a second time,
And
because he became impatient of God, and God made the water come. But because he didn't trust God with the first tap, that's why God punished him for not letting him go into the promised land. I believe. Someone out there who's a bit more up to speed with scripture might know better than I, but that's what I believe.
yeah, so Moses is allowed to look at the from afar, but
Mount Nebo.
Mount
Nebo.
he's not allowed to enter
You
the
can look across the
promised
River
land.
Jordan, see where it's going to go, and then he said, "Joshua, you take over," and Joshua kneels down, and Moses puts his hand on his head or something,
And tells him you have to lead the people.
and ordains him into being the new leader of the tribe.
Yeah. And he gives his nephew a copy of the books from Exodus, that describe the bit of the what the stories of what the Hebrews went through in Moses, and a bit of a detailed story of what happened there.
Whatever.
And according to details, Charlton Heston was going to ask Cersei Demille to design them, but his haste, he didn't have time to do it. So he had to pick up an old piece of some old manuscripts and roll them up and present them into the Shadshall. Yeah.
I don't know.
And eventually, Moses then heads up into the mountains and he waves goodbye.
Yeah.
And the end. And we get a flash to the 10 Commandments, and it says, "So it shall be written, so it shall be done."
Exactly. And then we get rolling to the credits and the end music and everything else.
Even though
blah. Anyway, look, I don't want to drag on too long. This is already getting long. I was going to talk about writing and special effects and different things. But look, the main part is they did use a lot of rear film projection, which worked really, really good.
I agree.
Apart from Moses standing there playing Red Sea, all the clouds behind him and stuff. it worked a treat.
Yeah, I do like the fact that Sister Mill used an actual microphone to convey his what he wanted to say to the background.
What do you expect to have? Smoke signals?
I know, but usually some people would often use a megaphone or something, or
Not for 14,000 people.
but I did like it when he
No,
was.
Woodstock all
I
night,
liked it
yeah,
when
yeah.
they were doing the orgy scene, which lasted 3 weeks.
Oh,
And
yeah.
in one scene,
Yeah.
two of the actress ladies were talking, and he says, "You two in the back there, what are you guys talking about?" And one of the ladies approaches him and picks up the mic and says, "When's this old bald-headed loony gonna let us have lunch?" And he sends takes lunch.
But wasn't there some part there in the orgy scene, one of the girls said something like, "Who do you have to sleep with to get off this movie?" Or
Yeah,
something?
see this.
It was dragging on a bit.
See, this scene took 3 weeks to do, guys.
Yeah.
You would think.
So, but
Well, but then
you know,
again, they had to do a
we can't
retake
talk-
here
again,
and there.
We can't talk too much. We're already about an hour and 15 minutes now. Okay, so
I know.
but like I said, the rear filming, the green screen, the map painting, the guy who put it all together. I haven't got his name here in front of me. The director of special effects or whatever, and of him, of Cecil B. DeMille working together, they really made it come to life on
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah.
It's very, very
Of
good
course,
art.
as we said
Yeah.
before, the reviews were favourable for
Very
this
favourable,
movie,
actually, yeah.
but the awards not so favourable.
Yeah, but that's a problem. I mean, the award. I'm not knocking the Oscars and different things, but sometimes the guys voting on them can't see the forest for the trees. If you get a really, really, really good, exceptional movie, and they don't like that sort of movie, they prefer something else to somebody else being sucking up to them, they're gonna go and vote for their mate. I'm sorry, it happens all the time. Not just the Oscars, but say this was a really good movie and it deserved more. It got 7 nominations or something or other, but only got 1 Oscar, and that was for special effects.
I agreed.
And it did deserve more. But
Yeah,
irrespective,
I mean,
yeah.
it had special effects. It had a good storyline, something that we never thought of, like
It's mighty fine acting.
like the idea we never thought that probably at the time that Moses would be a rival and possibly be a prince that will most likely become the next pharaoh,
Yeah.
or even for a fact that he had a love interest in Egypt or stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Okay, I'm going to go through a couple of things here real quick.
In other versions of Moses, you never see this sort of thing. You never hear if he had love interest or whether he was best friends with the pharaoh's son. Well, there were a few versions that made out that Ramesses and Moses got on like a house on fire.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to go through a couple of things here quickly. When I was actually sorting people out for the casting, then we might call it rats because this is dragging on a bit here.
Sorry, guys.
No, this is a long movie, so it took a bit more. As Sarah has, I don't think Sarah's mentioned it before, but when Cecil B. DeMille saw a picture of Charlton Heston, and he looked at the Moses figure, Michelangelo's Moses sculpture, he saw a very good likeness there, and he thought, oh, he'd make a good person to do the Moses role.
Yeah,
so that's how he got it.
Yeah, another scene when they were doing the group scenes. I mean the multitude scenes where they were near the when they were doing the scene where all the slaves were set free.
Yeah.
A lot of the people who were assigned playing the extra roles, they saw Charlton Heston dressed as Moses, and they all said
Moses?
Mushes.
Yeah, Mushes,
Yeah,
in the language, yeah.
Because they know Moses and they know
he looked like him.
And he looked like him.
Yeah, good makeup. Now, shorts.
I know, but it was nice. It was
I
like
know.
it was bringing history to life, and they believed
That'd
it.
be a feather in Cecil B. DeMille's cap to get
Yeah.
someone looking like he's supposed
Yeah,
to
the
be.
interesting thing about that scene was Cecil DeMille fired a shotgun to make sure they paid attention,
Well, handgun or whatever. But he
so
shot a
that
gun,
they would listen.
They can hear the people at the back. So we've got something happening here. So yeah.
Yeah.
Now, look, I'm going to go through a few things really quick. Like I said, the part of Nefertiti was a much sought after role. Now, here's a list of people who put up their hand up for it: Anne Blythe, Vanessa Brown, Joan Evans, Rhonda Fleming, Colleen Gray, Jane Griffith, Audrey Hepburn. She wasn't full of figured enough for the role.
I heard about that.
Jane Marie, Vivian Lee, Jane Russell, Joan Taylor, all considered for the part. DeMille liked Audrey Hepburn, but because her figure was too petite. Anne Baxter was considered for the part of Moses' wife, but she got the other role instead. Now, Judith Ames, Anne Bancroft, Anne Baxter, Shirley Booth, Diane Brewster, Peggy Castle, June Clayworth, who she is, Linda Darnell and O'Hare, Laura Elliott, Rhonda Fleming, okay, Rita Gam, Grace Kelly, Jacqueline, blah, 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 blah,
That's a
blah,
lot of
blah,
actors.
were all considered for the part of Sephora.
Wow.
Grace Kelly was the first choice, but she was unavailable. Maybe because she might have been married, but he was impressed because she'd been in a previous movie and she had a nice look, a saintly, pure look about her, which he's looking for. What else? Quickly. Merle Oberon and Claudette Colbert were considered for Bithia roles. Whatever. What else? Bette Davis was interviewed for some of it as well. Judith Anderson was for the nasty lady, Memnet, but Judith Anderson got it. So there's a lot of good people applied for it. Many are called, few are chosen. How's that?
But I did like the fact that Egypt approved of this movie.
Well, it wasn't nasty. See, some places don't like it if you're going to there and corrupt it too much and make a lot of. I won't say bullshit, but you know what I mean. If you're going to make it really horrible and it corrupts their perception of history, they won't let you do it. But if it reflects history properly, you probably get them on side and they'll let you do it. Yeah. Anyway, look, I won't talk too much because there's lots of other things I could talk about, special effects and actors and writing and everything else. It's a very fine movie. But and ending it off, I'll have to say that it's a really good epic movie. For those of you younger people who have never seen these old religious epic movies, I mean, you got this one, you got Ben-Hur, you got the Ten Commandments. Both have got Charlton Heston in it. You got The King of Kings with Jeffrey Hunter in it. That's for Life of Christ. You got The Robe. You got all these other ones. Spartacus, Barabbas. All these sword and sandal things done around the same period had the same sort of general feel. These producers, directors, DOPs, everybody else got into it and made them live.
And no one has ever came radically close to making Cecil
He was probably the best. He was probably the king of it.
Parting of the Red Sea. No one has come any close.
No.
I mean, everyone has done their own version of it, but no one has ever made it look so mind-bogglingly incredible.
He did so well, and the overall film, the whole production, excellent. Anyway, I don't want to go on too much further. We've already got about an hour and 20 minutes.
Let's rate this one now because before.
Can I 11 out of 10?
I would say about 12 out of 10. Out of 12.
12 out of 10. See, we love this. Hard work. It shows. Good product. I don't know. I haven't checked. You should be able to get this online through Amazon, eBay. Your local stores might still have it.
Yeah, you might get a DVD.
It's still popular.
And if you get the
there's a remastered one. I've got the remastered one. It looks like it was made yesterday. It was so clear and they've cleaned up so well. It's like a brand new product. It's really good.
Yeah.
So anyway, irrespective, go for it, hire it, buy it, have a look at it. Top movie, and maybe it'll give you a taste for seeing the other ones.
Yeah.
Okay, I have nothing more to say.
All right. Thanks for listening to this latest podcast, guys. We'll see you guys for the next one. This is Sarah Stephenson.
And Michael.
Saying see you guys around.
Bye, guys.